You're tuned in to the It's Real podcast with your hosts, Kayla Kallander and Andrew Yagi. Each week, we'll talk about what happens behind the scenes working full-time in real estate and share with you real-life stories, our successes and failures as we work to help consumers and industry professionals reach their real estate and real-life goals. Here we go. Episode 18 of the It's Real podcast. I'm Andrew Yagi, and I'm a real estate agent.
I'm Kayla Kallander, and I'm a mortgage lender.
Kayla, what's going on this week?
Well, just seeing a little bit of some crazy, busy fun. It's that time of year where there's always the 4th of July, the fair. It just seems like so many people live in Fargo when you don't see them in the winter. It's like you don't realize it. So the town has been booming. So it's been really busy, a lot going on. And although the weather was really warm for a long time, it's cooled off this week. So I think we need it. But
Absolutely.
how about you? What's new in your world?
Yeah, well, just kind of staying busy between obvious real estate activities, aviation, family. 4th was really great. Nice to be out around Otter Tail Lake. Saw you from the air as I flew over Marion Lake, and
Oh, that was
just
awesome.
really, I mean, we've had some really, really nice weather and just a lot of great activity. But
Good.
it's hard to think that, and I try not to think of summer in terms of this, but a lot of people often say that, once the 4th is
Fourth
done, summer's over, right?
is out. Yeah, it
Yeah,
feels like it. It's like everyone's ready for school. And I saw pumpkins out the other day, and I'm like
really.
at a store. I'm like, too soon. Not
Yeah, we
ready.
got our back to school shopping list from our girls from the school they go to, and so I was looking at that and thinking, "Ooh, I'm not ready to think about that quite yet."
Oh,
But
has that changed from when we were little? Like, is it that big of a difference between like now and then?
I don't know. Was there even a list when we went to school? Didn't you just show up with markers and a glue stick and a scissors and some folders?
There
And
were lists because I couldn't bring a trapper keeper. Trapper keepers weren't
ooh,
allowed. I remember that, but
when you say trapper keeper, I had like a Spalding basketball. It was like a basketball textured material trapper
oh
keeper at
yeah.
one point.
Apparently you couldn't have those. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, and how old are your kiddos again? Like what age
We kindergarten and preschool.
you're in preschool?
Two that are in
Man, oh
school.
man, are you ready for that?
I don't know. I'm, the older one, she's definitely the rule follower
Oh,
and does really well with school and
good.
everything. I'm worried about the middle one because
Yes.
she could be great and really sweet, but not always the best rule follower. So we'll see how it goes. We may be getting called into school, or maybe it'll go well. We'll
Maybe
find out.
not. Maybe it'll go well. Well, good luck with that. Well, and I have to ask you too. I saw you flying over the lake. You're like, hey, I'm flying over your lake. And my family and I were out on the pontoon at night. I sent you a video, but could you hear all of us yelling or could you see us? They wanted to know, could you see us? We were like, how far?
To be very honest, there were a lot of boats. Like even on your lake, there were a
Yeah.
ton of boats out on the
Yeah.
lake. Like I was surprised, but the because that was that the night of the 4th or the 3rd?
He was the third.
Yep, and it was just beautiful, like no wind, and
Yeah.
like so many people were out on the lake.
We're blessed to have the good weather for sure.
Yeah,
So, well, fly
yeah.
over anytime, Andy.
I will. Well, I will land, one of these days and come in for a visit.
Please do. We'll be waiting.
Oh. So, Kayla, what is going on this week in real estate? And more so, what's going on with rates?
We saw rates pick up quite a bit last week. We were seeing, I mean, I saw eights on the rate chart.
Ooh,
Remember when people say, what's the rate today? Truly, we're talking about a rate range. So depending upon, like you can see on this example, 505 to 737. Well, depending where your credit score is at and your type of purchase, it's going to make a difference. But you'll see 709. I saw 7.22 last weekend, a little higher. So we held off on locking a lot of people last week. Anyone that's in contract, they're floating right now. Rates have improved a little bit in the last couple of days, probably actually the last 24 hours. But they're sticking around that 7, which honestly, the trending data, the forecasts, we all had heard that we would see rates a little lower by this time.
Yeah.
However, I mean, it just goes to say that you just never know. And so, as a lender, personally, I'm not going to say, hey, clients, you should buy now because we're just going to refinance you in 6 months. I think the thought process is buy now if you can afford it. And if rates should drop, wow, you're in that house. All you need to do is refi. You don't have competition. So,
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying with rates. Are you hearing or seeing much on your end as a realtor with rates?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of the general sentiment that they're up,
Hmm.
and creating a lot of cause for pause for people. Obviously, like we talk and keep, we're probably sounding like a broken record. But if someone needs to buy,
Yeah.
obviously it makes sense. But if not, it might not be a bad idea to hang tight. However, home values continue to go up. And today, Kayla, we're going to talk a lot about the state of the market. Brian Buffini, who's kind of a national real estate coach, who I kind of follow a little bit, he puts out his bold predictions twice a year. And so just had kind of that event yesterday, some really great information. And so
Yeah.
I snagged a report from that I think would be very beneficial to share. I was just looking as well, just kind of looking at the home price index, Kayla, and just month over month, we're seeing pretty much nationwide, increases. Like you see Minneapolis, that's a strong increase. You see most places kind of through the Midwest. Some of the blues are a slight to normal increase, and in really just one area of Texas, a slight
Mhm. That's
decline,
good.
which, yeah, is a little bit peculiar. So, I mean, huge demand for housing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we dive into, some of the Buffini material, um,
Mhm.
which I think people will really enjoy.
Mhm. So, when you're seeing this material, are you finding that clients are going and getting this information on their own? Are you seeing people are pretty educated? Are you finding that your sellers and your buyers are truly seeking out your expertise, which in reality, a lot of us are listening to the podcast, following the trends, and we're regurgitating what we hear. But are you seeing most people are educated or no?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say most people are not that educated. I
Mhm.
mean, and the education maybe goes as far as the group that they have coffee with, that they're
Yeah.
sitting around and talking with, and someone knows someone whose third cousin just bought a house or is buying or just sold or whatever, or we see what happens on the nightly news, or we see the
Yeah.
hype that's all over the internet, and I think people are really confused because frankly there are so many conflicting messages. The market's going to crash. It's not going to
Mhm.
crash. Sales are up. Sales are down. What do I believe? And which it comes back to just a simple fact that it really makes sense to partner with someone who's going to take time to educate you and sit down and have a conversation. Someone who is working actively and actually working day in and day out in the business.
Well, and to kind of piggyback on that, I have people that won't pick up the phone. They'll shoot me an email and they'll email 5 other lenders, and they'll say, "What's your rate today?" Well, in reality, a lot of people are not being educated on the fact that there are so many factors that impact not just your rate, but what are you selling your other house for if you've got another home to sell? What is your agent saying? Oh, you're going to list it for that, which means you're going to profit this, which means you're going to put that down towards a home. So there's so many different moving parts. So if there's someone listening to this, or you're a realtor and you're sending out a lender recommendation or lender recommendations, it is so important for people to have a conversation because, Andy, as I told you before, do you go to the doctor and say, "Hey, I don't feel good. Can you just tell me what's wrong?" No, they ask you questions and you have conversations and things are done to determine the solution or the reason. And I think a lot of people just get caught up in what's your rate today? you know um my rate's 6%, but it'll cost you $15,000. So it's about education. You're spot on.
Yep. Yeah, the interesting thing that I'm seeing too, with prices is, things, of course, if something's desirable, it's selling over asking price. There's quite a bit of competition. The lakes market has been very interesting though, and especially
Yeah.
in some of the larger lakes. There are, especially with Lakeshore, with the market having been hotter, there are a lot of people who think, hey, my property is worth this really big number up here,
Mhm.
and are finding out that no, that the market is speaking and telling you that you're not going to get that. I just saw a property on
Yeah.
Otter Tail Lake, Kayla, that it was listed last year on about 3 acres. A lot of it's wooded, but had about
Mhm.
a 4,800 foot cabin, some other buildings, a nice property, nice level frontage, quite a deal, several hundred feet of frontage, and
Sure.
they had it listed for 2.8 million. They relisted it this year, I think around like 2.3, dropped it under 2 million, sold it for 1.5, which that's
Wow.
huge. And we're seeing more of that where, it's, pricing mindfully is so important if
Yeah.
you're going to be successful and want to net the most money possible.
And I think that goes back to education because you can tell someone you're going to list their home for 2.8 million, but in reality, to educate them and tell them the reasons why you might not or why rates are the way they are, it all comes down to the people you work with. And if anyone's, wondering what should I look for, we've recorded a podcast before that says, here's what you look for when you build your A team. And now more than ever, that's crucial.
Mhm. Absolutely, Caleb. Well, I want to jump into the education piece a little bit here and
Mhm.
kind of highlight this. So this is kind of
Yeah.
what I picked up from the report, that he had put together, and really just kind of talking about, the state of the market and just in general, and how 2023 differs from the '08
Hmm.
housing crisis. A couple of stats that I picked up, especially Kayla, were the fact that, Brian highlighted that 30% of homeowners out there own their house free and clear. An additional 29% of homeowners have 50% or greater equity in their homes. So,
Hmm.
you look at 60% that, do not have a whole lot of leverage. I mean, that right there tells you that we're probably not going to see a major crisis like we experienced
Right.
back in '08.
And I love that stat too because I don't think people realize that. Even that stat surprised me a little bit, but um 30%. And I wonder if those people are doing HELOCs. I wonder if those people are thinking, "Hey, I've got equity, maybe I should sell so that I can put that towards a new home." It's very interesting.
Mhm. Absolutely. I'll share a little bit more, Kayla.
Mhm.
So just kind of talking about new construction. So the
Yeah.
nice thing about this year is we are starting to see more new construction.
Mhm.
We've seen 1.63 million housing starts. That's up over 6% year over year. So that's a step in the right direction. And
Right.
obviously, we need new construction to
Yep.
help solve our low inventory problems.
Mhm.
Housing completions are up 5% year over year. Obviously, rising lumber prices, they were a little bit more of a factor before. We've seen
Yeah.
prices come back down. Housing inventory, May of 2023, we saw an inventory nationwide of a little over a million houses on the market. That's down 6% year over year. And existing home sales are down 20% year
Mm.
over year. So some real stats that showing that
Mhm.
obviously new construction is helpful, but it still just is not enough based on
Not
demand.
enough. Mhm.
Kayla, I was looking a little bit at the national market snapshot,
Yeah,
and kind of interesting to kind of look at the most expensive home markets and then
that
the
is
areas
interesting.
with the highest year over year price increases as well.
Mhm.
Nothing right in our backyard, although, 3 cities in Wisconsin, showing large price increases, which
Yeah.
is quite intriguing to me.
Why is that, Andy? Do you know? I have no idea why that is.
I honestly don't. I know, there are some large employers, some industry
Right.
manufacturing. Oshkosh, I love Oshkosh. I've got to get back out there. They have the world's largest fly-in air show every year, Kayla.
Oh,
You
wow.
ever heard of Air Venture?
I've never been there. I've never heard, but an air adventure, I mean, sounds
Yeah.
intriguing.
So AirVenture has like over like 100,000 people,
Wow.
come out for the event every year, and over 10,000 people or so probably fly in. My numbers probably aren't right. I know over 100,000 people show up.
Wow.
It's a really awesome
That's a lot of people.
aviation celebration. So
Oh.
yeah, I
Mhm.
would highly recommend, even if you don't love airplanes, get out there and check it out sometime, because I mean they do night air shows, pyrotechnics off of airplanes and everything else, and a lot of fun things during the day too.
That's awesome. I had no idea. Are you going this year or did you go this year?
I don't think I'm going to go. It's the end of the month here. I believe it's usually the very end of July, but it's just been a little bit off my radar lately. Just different season of life, kids and everything. But
Yep.
maybe in another year, when
Yeah.
they're another year older, I think it would be fun because they
That
love
would
to
be
fly.
cool. That's awesome. Well, that
Yeah,
maybe is one reason why Wisconsin's growing a little bit. Maybe people are going out there for that.
it could be. It could be. Kayla, I want to jump back to the report and talk about some of the regional trends a little bit. So
Mhm.
first stop on the report is the Midwest. So just looking at the existing home sales and just the fact that home sales are down about 21% year over year. So, when we're all sitting here and thinking, wow, there isn't a lot of inventory, is it just me or are things kind of slow? And so we see that realistically, yeah, year over year, that, we're missing some
Mhm.
homes on the market in order to sell.
Yeah, we are.
Yep. Kind of interesting though too. Home values have not skyrocketed right here as a whole. We saw back that like the Oshkosh, Neenah, Wisconsin market was up 16% year over year. Midwest as a whole up about 1.1%. So
Mhm.
that's good for affordability, but obviously your mileage may vary depending on where you're at.
True.
I'll touch on the other areas just really quick, but in the Northeast, seeing, very similar, down about 25%, up 2.5% year over year, median sales price.
Mhm.
The South down as well. The median sale price here, interestingly enough,
Hmm.
dropped just a little bit.
Yeah.
And then looking at the West, again, inventory or home sales are down. And actually, the median sales price as a whole dropped as well when they consider
Mhm.
the West. But boy, that's kind of a smattering on the 48 states and then Alaska and Hawaii. So,
Mhm. That's interesting. And we're right kind of in the middle there in the Midwest. We are, what was it, down 20, and you've seen the coasts are down 25. I
yep.
mean, right in the middle.
Kayla, I was wondering on the mortgage stats here, did you happen to write this? Wasn't this kind of your phrase that you coined? Marry the house, date the rate?
I was just one of the first people to use it, and then I feel like it fell on deaf ears because people were tired of hearing like, "We get it." So,
Right.
but there's some truth to it.
Yeah, it is really interesting, and I do like this graphic, and could be a great
Yeah.
educational piece.
Mhm.
Hey, look at the rate since 1980. 13% in 1980 for a mortgage.
Yeah.
90s 10.29, 2000 8.54. 5% around 2010. Obviously, we saw a low there, and then up where we're at now in 23.
Mhm.
So, it is just amazing how quick people forget. Where
Yeah. Well, especially if you're brand new to real estate or to mortgage. I mean, some of us haven't been in, I mean, I've been in it for, under a decade, but there's people that have been in this industry for decades and they're thinking, yeah, I'm going to hang on to my job. I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to throw in the towel because this is okay. This is normal. And I think that consumers, those that are selling or buying, especially if this is their first house, they get so stuck on that 3.18 example that when you really look at the big scheme of things, where we're sitting is actually pretty normal. It's
Mhm.
higher than what we're used to, but normal.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other interesting thing over here just talks about stability and says, hey, in a normal market going forward, a 30-year fixed rate mortgage is probably going to be slightly higher than in the past 10 years at about
Mhm.
5 to 6%. So, again, I think a lot of people look right
Mhm.
now and they think, oh man, I'm going to wait. We've got to wait for rates to come down. I'm going to wait for houses to get more affordable. Are rates going to come down? I think a lot of people say, yeah, hopefully they are going to trickle down and and next year may be a better year, but there just really simply aren't any guarantees, are there, Kayla?
There aren't. And I think that you just need to educate yourself, rely on the professionals. But as we talked about before, sometimes it's not just about the dollar. Sometimes we spend money on things for our own peace of mind, for our family. As I've talked to you about and others, it's maybe for me, Andy, I have 4 dogs and we didn't have a fenced in yard and to take them out on leashes every day, but now to have them run around free and for people to host Christmas and holidays, like what is it worth it to you to have a home of your own with the amenities that make your life easier or more of a blessing? So something else to consider than just one aspect.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because kind of the next piece talks about the buyer profile and especially what are buyers looking for. Quality of neighborhoods, 49% is a big piece. Convenience to family and friends, and nearly half of new home buyers don't want homes that need major renovations or repairs.
Hmm.
And like in my market, Kayla, that's really, really challenging just from the
Hmm.
standpoint of we have a really old housing inventory. Like for the most part, the most recent larger developments are from the 90s.
Okay.
And of course, within some of these neighborhoods, people have built, from 2000 on, have
Hmm.
built some newer homes as well. But we have a really a much older housing inventory than a lot of places. And it's really challenging. In fact, I'm constantly visiting with people, whether it's, people like our mayor, city administrator, county government, council members, other private business people, and just saying, hey, what can we do to solve
Hmm.
this? And the tough part is it's not an easy, overnight
No.
um, solution, so to speak,
Mhm.
especially when you get into some of the outlying, more rural areas. Now, if we're in Fargo like you, I mean, there's a lot going on. You've got big population. You've
Mhm.
got, I mean, the city obviously can afford to do a lot more
Yeah.
than our rural areas. So,
Yeah, I think every market's gonna have their pros and cons, but I'll be honest, like, if you're not a serious buyer and you're just kind of dabbling in your, well, I might buy in Fergus or, you're in Fargo, if you're not serious or you're committed, it's gonna be a lot harder too, no matter what market you're in.
yep,
So,
yep, absolutely. And especially if you're buying, the report, of course, goes on to talk about the fact that, market returning slightly back to more normal pace, buyers might have a little bit more
yeah.
flexibility, looking for concessions. I have some buyers, that have been able to negotiate concessions. Are you seeing that on any of your purchase agreements that you're putting together or that are coming across your desk?
I'm seeing quite a bit actually, quite a bit. I'm not seeing in my market a lot of offers on homes going for over asking though. So how about you on that front? Are you seeing list price? What are you experiencing?
Yeah, again, I think it depends on how it's priced because, there are some agents who will underprice something on purpose to try to get some competition. I like to try to find the middle ground, find that sweet spot that,
Yeah.
hey, I want to get people to take a look at this and not just have it languish and sit on the market, not underprice it per se, but also not go for the very top end.
I've never heard the thought process of pricing it lower for competition.
Mhm.
Obviously, I've heard of people price, realtors may price your home higher to try to like, I can get it for this, but that's actually a very interesting technique that to
Mhm.
drive competition. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. I've never thought of it from that angle.
Yep, it's used quite a bit because again, we're still luckily, we're in a spot where, again, buyers are coming and, now, like we've talked, the largest buying group out there are the millennials. And
Mhm.
so now we're seeing, this buying group, an average age of about 33 that's coming out,
Mhm.
and they're really, really hungry to buy.
Mhm.
Now, the tough part is, and this report kind of points it out as well, Kayla, is just kind of the fact that millennials are competing with the baby boomers, which are a lot of them all
Cash
cash
buyers.
buyers. Yeah.
Yep.
So, how do you compete with the boomers who are flush with cash after selling their homes and either won't need a mortgage or can put down a significant cash deposit? 28% of all buyers purchase a home with all cash offers. And that's hard. That's
It
really
is.
hard, especially as lately, like we were talking a little bit prior, I've seen more and more buyers have difficulty getting financing, just,
Yeah.
perhaps with their financial background. Some have
Yeah.
had some, nicks in their credit history. Their income maybe isn't where it needs to be. They might qualify for something, but some J loan or a USDA loan is a little bit challenging, especially if
Mhm.
you have to compete with the boomers.
It's true. It's like if you're not a conventional offer, it's like you might not hold a lot of weight right now, that pre-approval letter. But I think for anyone that's going up against a cash buyer, I mean, the things that I see that win are, getting creative on close date. How, can you close sooner? What kind of lender is on that loan? I called a listing agent last Friday night and introduced myself. I said, hey, my clients just put in an offer on your home. I'm not the realtor, but I'm calling to introduce myself as a lender because I want them to know I'm accessible. Um,
Wow,
I think that's
that's
important.
huge.
We got the house. So, that was how do you set yourself apart when you're up against cash? And you have to get creative with your lender and your realtor to say, hey, you know what? This might be a $500,000 cash offer, but I'm going to go in at 515. I'm not telling you to waive an inspection, but maybe there's some things that you could do to really set yourself apart.
Well, I like that, Kayla, and granted, I'm still the new kid on the block, but I've listed a lot of properties and I've never had a lender from the buyer on one of my listings reach out to me. Outside of maybe, the appraiser on their behalf to set up an appraisal
Sure.
or whatever. So I really, really like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I called you, Andy, and I said, "Hey, I'm Kayla with First International. My clients just made an offer on your beautiful listing. I want you to know they're fully underwritten. I've looked at their credit. They've been through underwriting review. They're solid. We talked programs. We're just waiting to get this lock in a rate, and it's appraisal and title dependent."
I like
Doesn't that give you more of a sense of, wow, okay, that's awesome. Well, and this offer is 15,000 over this cash one. Well, let's roll the.
I'd rather take the offer from that I knew the lender was Rocket Mortgage, Kayla, or
Yeah, I
some
bet.
online lender.
Well, I don't know people do realtors. I mean, I'm sure they do because Rocket's doing some business, but I feel like around here, if you have a Rocket or just someone not local, it's just there's
Ooh,
just so many things that happen that can
you
go
know,
side.
so to be fair, I have had some good experiences with online lenders, but I've had
Good.
more bad experiences, and the communication piece is really bad. And so when I know, like even today, I had a question on something, and one of the lenders,
Mhm.
one of my clients was using, I just reach out and having that conversation is really great and easy.
It's
So
easy. Yep.
two more things, Kayla, two more things, and then, we can kind of wrap it up. But just
Yeah.
wanting to we talked about kind of the buyer profile, a seller profile that's out
Yeah.
there. Obviously, a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines, hence kind of the year over year lesser number of sales, lesser inventory. So, what are the main reasons for selling? We speculate often, but based on the National Association of Realtor data, 21% of people want to move to be closer to family and friends. 11% retiring, 11% of people, their neighborhoods becoming less desirable,
Hmm.
10% have too small of a house, and 9% change in family situation, which I
Hmm.
mean, maybe death and divorce and some of that um, fall in there as well. So
Hmm.
obviously, market's still favoring sellers. And kind of like we've talked, we have to just be more mindful when we're
Yeah.
pricing homes, so to speak, to make sure that we have the home priced right.
Hmm.
One last thing, Kayla, I want to talk about are the benefits of home ownership that Brian points out here. 88% of buyers out there view owning a home as a good investment. A typical homeowner gained approximately $14,300 in equity. Home sellers gained a median of $112,000 more than their purchase amount. And a typical homeowner who owned a home for more than 10 years had more than $200,000 in equity.
Isn't
So,
that crazy?
I think you look at that, and depending on what camp you're in, I really like to listen as well to Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and
Yeah.
Robert calls. I mean, most people say, "Oh, a home is your largest investment ever." It's most people's largest asset. Robert calls uh, a home a liability because of all the things that can go wrong with it and everything and systems and putting money into it, but you really look at this report and it's really hard to turn away from some of these numbers, isn't it, Kayla?
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know what you see, Andy, but I see a lot of profit and loss statements from clients. Or, I see a lot of, what's my net worth? A lot of different things from their financial advisors that show here are my assets, here are my liabilities. And I can tell you what 99% of people's equity, their wealth, what makes them worth money is their assets in real estate. And I see it constantly. And people forget the equity gain. They think, "Oh, my payment's going up 300 bucks a month, but what are you gaining?" So
Yeah.
I love that statistic.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing too, obviously we talk about real estate a lot in the context of residential real estate, but in some of our coming episodes, we're going to talk a little bit more on the investment side, I think, Caitlin, actually visit with some people who are investors, some people who are big into the fix and flip game. I have a friend recently that came to the area here, and they bought a hotel. And are looking at that, something that was kind of dilapidated and needed a lot of work, and now they're really turning it around and kind of talk about their objectives and what they look for. I would have never ever thought of buying a hotel, and frankly, still, it's probably not high on my list, but it's just really interesting for
Never
me,
know.
to visit with different people and kind of see, hey, what's your objective, and what is it that you see here?
Hmm.
And chances are there are other people out there that see the same thing and feel the same way.
And where do you begin? I think that even providing that to our audience is, where do you even start if you're thinking about doing that? And I think that that's something that we could truly provide our viewing audience.
I love it. Well, Kayla, we've provided a lot of information, but I think, halfway through the year,
Yeah.
Brian Buffini's bold predictions, that honestly, it was really helpful for me to tune into it yesterday and even to review
Mhm.
this today. Just looking at all of it. And I know it's some data that I'm going to use, to
Yeah.
kind of educate my clients or prospects going forward. So if you ever have a question, if you're watching this or listening today, and you'd like to visit more and talk about your unique situation, whether it's on buying or selling, or even on the mortgage side, reach out to me, reach out to Kayla. We would love to help educate you and be a resource for you.
And next week we should look at the MBA forecast to show what's going on with the rate trends. I
We
love
should.
Buffini's great graphics and stats. How does that relate to actual mortgage rates? So next week I say we tune into that a little bit too.
Sounds great, Kayla. Well, good connecting as always, especially after our July 4th week of respite. Uh,
Holiday.
have a great rest of the week, and we'll catch up next week.
Sounds good. We'll see you, Andy.
See ya.